Kierkegaard on Faith, The Leap You Must Take. Søren Kierkegaard, the 19th century Danish philosopher, offers a profoundly challenging and intensely personal understanding of faith, one that often stands in stark contrast to comfortable, conventional religiosity. His work, particularly in masterpieces like Fear and Trembling and concluding unscientific postscript, strips away the collective, historical, and intellectual crutches we often lean on, presenting faith not as a rational conclusion, but as a radical, subjective, and passionate commitment. For Kierkegaard, faith is the ultimate expression of individual existence, a venture so fraught with paradox and potential despair that it demands a complete transformation of the self, a true leap. The subjectivity of truth against objective assurance. One of the most defining aspects of Kierkegaard's philosophy is his assertion that subjectivity is truth. This doesn't mean truth is whatever you want it to be, but rather that the most crucial truths, those concerning existence, ethics, and salvation, can never be fully grasped through objective, scientific, or historical means. If you could logically prove the existence of God or the tenets of Christianity, faith would become superfluous. It would be mere knowledge or historical acceptance. Kierkegaard argues that while historical facts about Jesus are important, relying on them alone distances the believer. The objective uncertainty, the gap between what we can historically know and what the teachings demand, is precisely what creates the space for faith. This uncertainty is not a weakness to be overcome, but the very crucible in which authentic faith is forged. True faith, therefore, is not about holding a set of demonstrable facts, but about the passion and how one holds those facts. It's a dynamic, existential relationship, not a static proposition. The paradox and the absurd, offense and the night of faith. The core of Kierkegaardian faith lies in its confrontation with the paradox and the absurd. The Christian doctrine, God becoming man, the eternal entering time, the infinite dwelling in the finite, is an offense to pure reason. Rationality demands consistency and logic. Faith demands the acceptance of something that is, from a purely human standpoint, nonsensical. This is the absolute paradox. To embrace this paradox is to engage the absurd. The genuine believer, the knight of faith, does not attempt to rationalize the paradox away. Instead, they acknowledge its offensive nature to the intellect and still choose to believe. This is where the famous leap of faith is taken. It's a movement that cannot be mediated by universal ethical rules or philosophical systems. It is a moment of pure, decisive, and solitary choice. A perfect illustration of this is the story of Abraham and Isaac, analyzed meticulously in Fear and Trembling. Abraham is faced with a teleological suspension of the ethical. God commands him to violate the universal ethical law, thou shalt not kill, for a higher divine purpose, the telos. The ethical demands he stop. Faith demands he continue. Abraham cannot explain his actions to his neighbor, nor can he justify it using any universal law. He stands alone, in fear and trembling, making a move into the realm of the absolute, accepting the absurdity of his situation. This is the loneliness and terror of authentic faith. The stages of existence, faith as the religious stage. Kierkegaard delineates 3 stages of existence, which describe different modes of life and engagement with the world. Faith is reserved for the final, most demanding stage. 1. The aesthetic stage, driven by immediate sensation, pleasure, and possibilities. The aesthetic individual lives moment to moment, trying to avoid boredom and commitment. They are defined by fleeting experiences. Think of Don Juan. This stage ultimately leads to despair because it lacks continuity, meaning, and a coherent self. 2. The ethical stage, defined by commitment to universal moral laws and duties. Example, marriage, career, citizenship. The ethical individual lives by the universal, striving to be a good, responsible member of society. This stage involves choice and commitment, but it is ultimately limited because the universal ethical law can never fully account for the unique, passionate, and infinite demand of the individual's relationship with God. 3. The religious stage. This is the realm of the knight of faith, who has not abandoned the ethical, but has suspended it for the sake of the absolute. They live in a personal, immediate relationship with the absolute. This stage involves the ultimate, passionate commitment, accepting the offense of the paradox and the solitude of the subjective choice. It is a state of perpetual struggle and renewal. The leap of faith is the movement from the ethical stage to the religious stage. It is a qualitative change, not a gradual one. It requires a break, a decisive moment where the individual commits their entire existence to the unknowable, passionate truth of God. A challenge for modernity, the danger of Christendom. Kierkegaard's analysis is a fierce critique of Christendom, the cultural, societal establishment of the Church. He argued that in 19th century Denmark, everyone was nominally Christian, but this had made Christianity easy, comfortable, and therefore utterly meaningless. Faith had become a cultural inheritance, an objective fact of society, and not a challenging existential task. True faith, Kierkegaard insists, is rare and involves suffering. It means being an individual before God, stripped of social roles and objective certainty. His work is a call to awaken from the slumber of comfortable nominal religion and to take up the terrifying yet ultimately fulfilling task of becoming a true existing individual through the audacious leap of faith. If Kierkegaard's raw existential challenge to conventional thinking has stirred something within you, don't keep the conversation to yourself. Hit that like button if this perspective on faith resonated with your own search for meaning. Subscribe to join our journey through philosophy's deepest questions, and be sure to drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Do you think the leap of faith is a necessary component of belief, or is there a more rational path? Let's discuss the absurd.